Level 1. The decision. The coffee is cold before you finish it. That's the detail you'll remember later, not the spreadsheet open on your laptop, not the number you've circled 3 times in red. Just the cold coffee, the 11:47 p.m. on the microwave clock, and the particular silence of an apartment where the only sound is the refrigerator working quietly and your own breathing. You are 25 years old. You make $54,000 a year, which is close to the US median household income, and feels, depending on the hour, like either too much or not nearly enough. You have $6,200 in savings, a student loan balance of $23,000, and a credit card you've been carrying a rotating balance on since you were 22. The balance is $2,800. You've been meaning to pay it off for so long that meaning to has stopped feeling like intention and started feeling like personality. Tonight, you do something that will sound, when you try to explain it to anyone else, completely unremarkable. You decide to stop. Not quit your job, not move to a cabin, not sell your possessions and live off the land. You decide to stop letting money move through your hands without a direction. You decide that 70 cents of every dollar you earn from this point forward will either pay off debt or go into a low-cost index fund, and that the remaining 30 cents will handle everything else: rent, food, the rest of your life. The minimalist money rules don't come to you from a guru or a best-selling book. They come to you from a calculator and a quiet desperation that you're finally willing to look at directly. You run the math twice, then a third time, because you don't trust yourself to have done it right. At your current savings rate, roughly 8%, which is above the national average of 3.9% according to the Bureau of Economic Analysis, which tells you something devastating about where the bar has been set. You will be 58 before you have genuine options. At 70%, the number that feels borderline insane, you will have options at 35. The difference between 58 and 35 is not 10 years. It is a different life entirely. You close the laptop. The decision is made in the same room where you ate cereal this morning, in the same apartment where nothing has changed. The whole transaction takes place without a witness, without applause, without anyone knowing it happened. That's the thing nobody tells you about the decisions that actually change your life. They almost never feel like anything at the time. The coffee is cold. You pour it down the sink, and something quietly, irrevocably begins. Level 2. The silence. 3 months in, Marcus buys a new apartment. Not just new to him, new. One of those buildings that went up downtown in the last 2 years, all glass and exposed concrete, and a gym that has a view of the skyline. You go to his housewarming on a Saturday in March, and you stand in his living room, eating imported cheese off a wooden board, and you feel something you were not expecting to feel. You feel completely, profoundly invisible. Not because anyone is unkind. Marcus is generous. The people are easy. The apartment is genuinely beautiful, in the way that expensive things are beautiful, effortlessly, without having to try. But nobody here is asking about your index fund. Nobody is circling your brokerage account balance with the same energy they're using to admire the kitchen island. You have been following the rules for 11 weeks. You've paid off $1,900 of your credit card balance. You've cut your subscriptions from 7 to 2. You drive a 2017 Honda Fit that you paid $8,400 for in cash, which removed your previous car payment of $310 a month, and which gets 36 miles to the gallon, and which no one has ever once asked you about. You have rerouted your paycheck so that $3,150 leaves your account automatically on the day it arrives, $1,200 into a Roth IRA and taxable brokerage account, $800 toward debt. The rest runs your life. You are building something real. You know this the way you know facts. Cerebrally, correctly, without being able to feel it yet. At the party, someone you've just met asks what you drive. You tell them. There's a pause that lasts approximately 1 second longer than it needs to. They nod and pivot the conversation to something else. This is the silence. Not one single crushing moment, but 1,000 small gaps where the status performance would have gone. The way conversations that used to open now close. The friend who stops asking if you want to split a vacation rental because they already know your answer. The work colleague who stops inviting you to the Thursday happy hours that run $45 with tip. You keep the rules. What nobody tells you about voluntary simplicity is that the social cost is real, and it is front-loaded. You pay it first, before the math has time to prove you right. You pay it in invisibility and in the specific loneliness of making a choice nobody around you is making, and having no results yet to point to. It is month 3. Your brokerage account has $4,100 in it. It is not impressive. It does not feel like freedom. It feels like a number in a box that nobody can see. But somewhere in the city, in a building with better lighting, in a room full of people eating good cheese, something is happening that nobody at the party can see either. The gap is opening. Level 3, the gap. Year 2, the debt is gone. All of it. The credit card cleared. The student loan paid off 11 months ahead of schedule. The feeling when you make the final payment is not triumph. It is the quiet, unremarkable sensation of something ending. A low-grade hum you'd stop noticing is simply gone. You redirect the debt payments into investments immediately. No ceremony, no lifestyle upgrade. The money that was leaving now stays differently. This is the rule you were most afraid of. No lifestyle inflation after raises. You got one in month 14, $4,200 annually, which should feel like permission to breathe. Instead, you increase your automatic investment transfer by $350 a month and spend the rest of the raise on nothing in particular. You understand, in a way you couldn't have at 25, that this rule is the one that separates the people who talk about building wealth from the people who actually do it. Every study on personal finance says the same thing in different fonts. Saving rate matters more than income. A 2023 Vanguard analysis of retirement outcomes found that consistent contribution rate was the single strongest predictor of long-term wealth accumulation. More than returns, more than fund selection, more than timing. The math works if you let it work. Most people don't let it work. By month 26, you have $19,400 invested. This is the part of the story where nobody claps, because $19,400 is not a story anyone tells at a dinner party. It doesn't photograph, it doesn't have a housewarming. It is a number in a brokerage account that, at the S&P 500's historical average annual return of roughly 10%, is doing something patient and invisible and exponential while you go about your life. You have a friend named Devin. Devin is 26, a year younger than you. Devin works in logistics and makes $49,000 a year, and recently financed a $52,000 truck. The payment is $980 a month. The insurance is $290 a month. Devin is funny and warm and extremely good at his job, and one of the people you'd call if something went wrong. Devin also has, as far as you can tell, approximately $0 invested anywhere. The truck is clean. Devin is proud of it. You understand, deeply, and without judgment, exactly what the truck means to Devin, because you understand what you were looking for at 25 before you found the rules. You were looking for the same thing. The gap between your trajectories is not visible yet. You are both just 26, 27, living lives that look broadly similar from the outside. Same income bracket, same city, same general social orbit. But underneath the surface, something has diverged so completely that 5 years from now, you will barely be able to see each other across the distance. The gap is the thing nobody talks about in personal finance. Not the sacrifice, not the discipline. The gap. The invisible, ever-widening mathematical chasm that opens between the person who invests early and consistently and the person who means to start next year. Because here's what compound interest actually is at the ground level. Without the inspirational poster framing, it is time. That is the entire mechanism. You are buying time. Every dollar you invest at 26 is worth dramatically more than the same dollar invested at 36, not because of magic, but because the earlier dollar has 10 additional years to do its only job. You buy the Honda Fit, a new set of tires. $480. You do not feel guilty about this. The one-in, one-out rule has simplified your apartment to the point where you genuinely love being in it. There is nothing in your home that you don't use or that doesn't give you real satisfaction. Clutter, it turns out, has a psychological cost that the minimalism literature talks about in breathless terms, but that you have to feel in your own body to understand. You feel lighter, still invisible, still quiet, still building in the dark. In 1 year, the numbers are going to show you something undeniable. You aren't ready for how that's going to feel. Level 4. The pressure. Year 3. Something cracks. Not the plan. The plan is working exactly as designed. The something that cracks is harder to name. It lives in the chest, below language. It surfaces on a Friday evening in October when you sit in your apartment with its clean lines and its deliberate emptiness, and you feel, with sudden and unexpected force, profoundly alone. Not lonely exactly, alone. The specific aloneness of a path that diverges. You missed your cousin's Vegas trip in September, not because you couldn't afford a version of it. You could have. But the version you could have afforded, $600 budget, sensible hotel, 2 nights, contradicted the energy of the group, which was loud and expensive and running on credit cards nobody was thinking too hard about. And you did the math, which you now cannot stop doing in any situation involving money, and the math said, the $600 plus the $300 in lost investment compounding over 10 years at historical average returns was actually somewhere north of $1,500 in real future value. So you stayed home. Your cousin sends a group photo from the strip at 2 a.m. Everyone looks like the best version of themselves. You put your phone face down on the coffee table and sit with what you're feeling. Is this the point? Is this where you become someone who lives in a monastery of his own design, watching other people live while he accumulates? This is the question you've been avoiding. The social cost of the rules has been steady and cumulative. Small things. The restaurant that's out of range. The conversation where you don't have the car or the vacation or the home renovation to contribute. The specific, status-coded language of your peer group that you've quietly stepped outside of. According to a 2024 Pew Research study, 58% of Americans say financial stress regularly affects their relationships. Yours is the inverse. The absence of financial stress is affecting yours. You call your mother on Sunday. She asks if you're doing okay. You say yes. She knows you well enough to not entirely believe you. Here is what nobody tells you about pursuing financial independence in your late 20s in America. It is a fundamentally countercultural act. The entire infrastructure of modern life, the advertising, the social media algorithms, the product placements embedded in every piece of content you consume is calibrated with precision and enormous amounts of money to make the performance of consumption feel not just desirable, but morally correct, like what adults do, like what people who have their lives together do. Opting out of it does not feel neutral. It feels like dissent. And dissent is uncomfortable to hold, especially when you're holding it alone, especially at 27, especially on a Friday night when your phone keeps lighting up with photos of people who are somewhere loud and expensive and alive in a way that photographs beautifully. You question everything that month, the rules, the math, the version of yourself this is building toward. You wonder if you are optimizing your life or just sitting it out in spreadsheet form. And then something happens that pulls you all the way back. You check your brokerage account, level 5. The turning point. $47,300. You have to look at it twice. You have been contributing consistently for 33 months. The market had a rough patch in months 14 through 18. Your balance actually dropped for a few weeks, and you felt something in your stomach you didn't let yourself act on, which turns out to have been the single most important financial decision of your life. Doing nothing, just staying in, and then it recovered and continued. $47,300. From contributions and returns combined, on an income that never exceeded $62,000. With a savings rate that started at 70% and has held approximately there across 3 years of incremental raises, that you have refused to lifestyle inflate. You sit with that number for a long time. This is the turning point. But it doesn't feel like a movie moment. There's no swell of music. Nobody congratulates you. You are sitting on your couch in an apartment that costs $1,240 a month, exactly 24% of your take-home pay, just inside your own rule, in a city where the average one-bedroom now runs $1,890, according to Zillow's 2024 rental data, and you are looking at $47,300 that is working while you sleep. Devin bought new rims for the truck last month. They cost $1,800. He paid for them with a credit card. He showed you a photo, and they genuinely look good. You said so. You meant it. You also know that $1,800 invested at your age at historical average returns is worth approximately $12,400 at 45. That's the math you can't unsee now. Not because you're calculating Devin's decisions, you're not, but because the math is just always present, like a second language you learned late but can no longer stop thinking in. Here is the inflection point that the financial independence community talks about but doesn't fully explain. There comes a moment, somewhere in year 3 or 4, where the investment account balance stops feeling like a number and starts feeling like time. Like actual, tangible, convertible units of future freedom. At $47,300 generating 10% annually in an average year, your investments are producing roughly $4,700 a year by themselves, without you, without your work, without you doing anything except leaving them alone. That's $391 a month for money alone. That number is small. That number is also the beginning of something that doesn't stop. That number doubles again, becomes something that, by year 10, will be producing more per month than your rent costs. You feel it for the first time then, not the intellectual certainty of the math, the felt sense of it, the weight of accumulated patience in the body. The doubt from October doesn't disappear, but it shifts. It becomes a smaller voice, running underneath a larger, quieter, much more confident one. You increase your monthly investment transfer by $200. You do it automatically before you can talk yourself out of it. You take Devin to lunch the following week, split a reasonable bill, and laugh more than you have in months. The path is still long, but you can see the direction now in a way you couldn't from the beginning. Something has changed, and there's no going back through it. Level 6, the arrival. Year 8. You are 33 years old. You are sitting in a coffee shop on a Tuesday at 10 inches the morning, and you have nowhere you are required to be until 1 p.m. And this is not a vacation or a sick day. This is just a Tuesday. This is what enough looks like from the inside, and it looks like a coffee that you finish while it's still hot. The brokerage account sits at $214,000. Your Roth IRA holds another $68,000. Combined, $282,000 invested. The Federal Reserve's 2023 survey of consumer finances found that the median American between 35 and 44 has a net worth of approximately $135,000, including home equity. You are 33. You have passed that median already, in liquid investable assets alone, without a house. This wasn't the plan exactly. The plan was the number, the enough number you defined at 25 and have been refining every year since. Your number is not early retirement at 33. Your number is $400,000 in invested assets. At which point, the 4% rule, the withdrawal rate that research suggests has historically sustained 30-year retirements with overwhelming probability, produces $16,000 a year, which, combined with a modest part-time income, doing work you actually choose, means your core financial survival is no longer dependent on your willingness to trade hours for money at whatever rate someone else decides to pay for them. Options. That was always the word underneath all of it. Not stuff, not status. Options. You are not at the number yet, but you can feel the edge of it now. You can feel the shape of the life on the other side. The Honda Fit has 91,000 miles. You have maintained it meticulously, Because a reliable car that is fully paid for is, financially speaking, one of the most effective decisions a person can make in their adult life. The average new car payment in 2024 was $726 a month, according to Experian. You have not had a car payment in 8 years. The math on that alone, if you run it at historical market returns over 8 years, is approximately $124,000. One decision, compounded. Your apartment costs $1,450 a month now, because rents have risen. But you have maintained your housing below 25% of take-home, which required one move 2 years ago and one period of having a roommate that you don't regret at all. You still do the one in, one out rule, not as discipline anymore, as preference. Your space is yours in a way that cluttered spaces cannot be yours. There is a different relationship with objects when every object in your home is there because you chose it, not because it accumulated, because entropy brought it. Devin bought a house last year. Finally. He's 32. The mortgage is steep, and the down payment took everything he'd managed to save, which wasn't much. But the house is real, and it's his, and he is genuinely proud, and you attended the housewarming and ate food he grilled, and stood in his backyard and felt something uncomplicated for the first time in a long time. Pride, just pride, for both of you. The comparison that used to cut has gone quiet, because you have started to understand what arrival actually is, and it is not a destination you reach and stand on. It is a threshold you cross, where the future, for the first time, costs less than the present did, where you are no longer buying time, time is arriving on its own. You order a second coffee. You sit with the Tuesday morning light coming through the window, and you think about your 25-year-old self running numbers at 11:47 p.m. with cold coffee and something close to panic in the chest. You want to tell him something, but you know the thing you want to tell him cannot be told. It can only be lived. Level 7. The truth. You are 35. You are sitting in an ordinary room, in an ordinary chair, and you have reached the number, $403,000. The enough, you defined at 25, adjusted twice for inflation, crossed last month. You stared at it the same way you stared at that first spreadsheet in your apartment, with the same quality of silence, except the silence now means something entirely different. Here is what you thought you were doing when you started. You thought you were solving a money problem. You thought the rules were about math. The 70% savings rate, the no car payment, the index funds, the housing ceiling, the zero subscription creep. You thought these were financial instruments you were wielding with discipline and clarity. What you were actually doing was practicing a philosophy whose implications you couldn't fully see from the beginning. Minimalism, in the financial sense, is not about having less. Everyone says this, and almost no one means it in the deep way it needs to be meant. It is about the relentless, honest, daily reckoning with the question, what is this for? Every purchase, every expense, every lifestyle decision. What is this actually for? And is it delivering what I believe I am buying? The car you drove for 9 years was for transportation. It delivered transportation, with zero waste. The subscriptions you canceled were for entertainment. The entertainment they provided was marginal and replaceable. They did not survive the question. The lifestyle inflation you refused after every raise, the promotions you got, the salary that is now $89,000 and has not generated a single corresponding upgrade in your visible life, that money went somewhere real. It went somewhere that compounds. It went somewhere that is now producing $16,000 a year without you. Here is what nobody tells you about financial minimalism after a decade. The money is not the thing you're most grateful for. The thing you're most grateful for is the clarity. The decade-long practice of asking, what is this for, has infiltrated every part of your life in ways that have nothing to do with dollars. Your relationships are cleaner. Your time is more deliberately arranged. You have fewer obligations to maintain appearances you don't believe in. You waste less. You are, by external measures, unremarkable. The apartment is nice, the car is old, the wardrobe is considered. The vacations, when you take them, are chosen for experience rather than status. And you are, by every internal measure that matters to you and only you, precisely where you chose to be. Devin got a promotion. He's doing well. His house has appreciated. He still has the truck. We had dinner last month at a restaurant that was his suggestion and his treat, and I let him because it mattered to him and because some things matter more than the math. He said something at dinner that has stayed with me. He said, "I feel like I'm always catching up to something. I don't know what." You knew what. You didn't say it. It was not the moment for it. What he is chasing is what you were chasing at 25. The feeling, the sense of having arrived, the permission, finally, to exhale. But the feeling cannot be purchased. This is the truth underneath every level of this story. Not that spending is wrong. Not that wanting beautiful things is a character flaw. Not that Devin's truck was a mistake and your Honda Fit was enlightenment. The truth is simpler and harder than any of that. The feeling of having arrived cannot be purchased because it is not located in anything you can acquire. It is located in the relationship you have with your own future. In whether you trust that you are building something real, even when nobody can see it, even when the party is elsewhere, even when the photos come in at 2 a.m. from somewhere loud and expensive and alive. When you trust that, the need to perform arrival dissolves. Not entirely. You are human, and the desire for recognition doesn't vanish, but it quiets. It becomes one voice among many, instead of the only voice you can hear. At 35, you do not have a house. You do not have the truck. You do not have the granite countertop or the kitchen island or the renovated bathroom or any of the things that the social fabric of your peer group has used to signal having figured it out. You have a brokerage account that is past the number. You have a Tuesday morning that belongs to you. You have a life whose shape you recognize because you drew it yourself. At 25, on a night when nobody was watching, with a calculator and cold coffee and the quiet, fierce decision to find out what was real. The rules were never the point. The rules were just a structure for holding a question. And the question, the one the rules kept forcing you back to, week after week, year after year, every time money moved, was always the same one. Not, can I afford this? Not, do I deserve this? But, who am I building with this? And it turns out that question, asked consistently over 10 years, with honesty and without flinching, will do more for your life than any single financial decision you could ever make. The coffee is hot. You finish it before it gets cold. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. See you in the next.